The alarm went off early that Monday morning, just like any other. Olivia got up slowly, feeling the familiar anxiety that had been accompanying her for the past few weeks. Her routine, which had once brought her comfort, was now filled with uncertainty. Ever since the last meeting at her company, when she was informed of her layoff, everything seemed out of control. After 15 years of dedication to the same company, Olivia found herself without direction. The restructuring had been relentless, cutting not only her position but also her sense of stability. "You are a valuable asset, Olivia, but unfortunately, we can't keep you right now," the company executives had said, as if there were consolation enough. Those words have been echoing in her mind ever since. Olivia went downstairs in the house where she lived with her husband, James, and her stepdaughter, Chloe. The living room was silent, and it made her realize how much the atmosphere at home had changed. Mornings used to be filled with warm conversations and laughter, but lately, there was a coldness in the air, almost like judgment. James was sitting at the table, reading the newspaper as he did every day, not even lifting his gaze when Olivia entered the kitchen. Chloe, who was usually eager to talk, was on her phone with her headphones on, completely oblivious to what was going on around her. "Good morning," Olivia mumbled, hoping for some response, even if it was just a little. James merely grumbled something indistinct, and Chloe didn't even take off her headphones to respond. It was as if Olivia's presence was a bother, a palpable reminder that something had changed in the family dynamic. She didn't know how, but she felt that the loss of her job had been the catalyst for the negative shift in both of their behaviors. While preparing her coffee, Olivia tried to focus on the email she needed to send later, searching for new job opportunities. Each attempt at reemployment seemed harder than the last. The job market was saturated, and her confidence was shaken. She was experienced, yes, but time was against her. "Are you still looking for a job?" James's voice finally broke the silence. Olivia turned around slowly, noticing the disdain in his tone. "Yes, I am. I have a few interviews lined up for next week," she replied, keeping calm despite the growing tension. "Maybe you should think about something more realistic," he suggested, raising an eyebrow. "Spending more time here at home, helping out with chores. The job might take a while." Those words felt like a blow. Olivia had always been an independent woman, used to balancing work and family. But there was James, insinuating that she should focus on being a housewife, as if her career no longer mattered. I'm trying, James. I just need a little more time," she said, holding back her frustration. Chloe, now without her headphones, looked at Olivia with visible disdain. "Dad, you're right. The house has been kind of messy lately, don't you think?" Chloe said with a slight smile, as if she were enjoying Olivia's discomfort. Olivia didn't reply. She felt a tightness in her chest, as if, along with losing her job, she was also losing her family. The home that had once been her safe haven now felt like a place where she didn't belong. She finished her coffee in silence, trying to suppress the pain that was starting to build up inside her. It was the beginning of a battle that Olivia didn't know she would have to fight. The weeks that followed were a silent nightmare for Olivia. The atmosphere at home, once full of small gestures of love and companionship, was now enveloped in a cutting cold. Conversations, which once brought comfort, were replaced by heavy silences, interrupted by judgmental looks that left her feeling even more fragile. Olivia spent hours in front of the computer, sending out resumes and trying to stay optimistic, but the job market seemed cruelly closed off to her. With each rejection, a new layer of anguish built up. Deep down, she knew that it wasn't just about finding a new job. What worried her more was how James and Chloe were treating her. She felt like a burden in her own home. The walls, which once conveyed safety, now seemed to close in on her, as if they were squeezing her more each day. James barely spoke to her, and when he did, it was always with that dry, almost impersonal tone. Chloe, on the other hand, had become a stranger. The young woman whom Olivia had treated with so much love and care since she married James now barely hid the contempt she felt. It was a Thursday night. Olivia, exhausted from yet another fruitless day of job searching, was in the kitchen trying to make dinner. She had always been a decent cook, but lately, her mind was so overwhelmed that she could hardly concentrate on something as simple as following a recipe. The smell of something burning began to fill the kitchen, and Olivia, panicked, rushed to the oven to try to save the dish she'd prepared. "Again, Olivia?" James's voice sounded behind her, sharp as a knife. "Can't you even cook right anymore?" Olivia closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath, trying not to explode. The humiliation hit harder each time, and she felt like she was on the verge of breaking down. She opened the oven, pulling out the burnt dish, while James continued to watch her with that expression of discontent. "I'll make something else," Olivia muttered, avoiding his gaze. "Don't bother. Chloe and I will order takeout," he said, already turning as if the conversation wasn't worth any more of his time. Olivia bit her lower lip, holding back the tears that burned her eyes. James's disdain seemed to be getting more constant, as if she were to blame for all the misfortunes in the house. She wanted to scream, to ask why he, who had promised to stand by her through good and bad times, now treated her like a stranger, as if her only usefulness had been to support him financially. Chloe entered the kitchen soon after, with that carefree walk of someone who had nothing to lose. "It smells awful," she said, wrinkling her nose. "You were never a great cook, but lately, well, this is pathetic." Olivia felt a wave of anger rise within her, a pent-up fury she didn't know she had. She wanted to snap back, to tell Chloe that it wasn't fair, that she was doing the best she could, but the words got lost in the lump in her throat. She was tired of trying, tired of striving for a family that apparently never truly valued her. "Don't worry, Chloe. This will all be over soon," Olivia replied, her voice calm, but filled with a pain she could no longer hide. Chloe looked at her for a second, surprised by the unexpected response, but quickly resumed her cold stare and left the kitchen without saying another word. Olivia leaned against the counter, feeling the weight of the day, the week, and the months of rejection. The fear of failure consumed her. She had always been a strong, resilient woman, someone who faced challenges head-on. But now, with the financial crisis and the emotional abandonment of her family, she felt like she was losing control of her own life. The silence in the house echoed the emptiness she felt inside. She climbed the stairs slowly, entered the bedroom she shared with James, and closed the door. The room was dark, and the bed seemed colder and more distant than ever. James had already gone to bed, his face turned the other way, as if he didn't even care to wait for her. They rarely talked before bed now. The nights, once filled with intimacy and comfort, had turned into moments of shared loneliness. Olivia sat on the edge of the bed, her hands trembling. The thought of divorce was crossing her mind more frequently, but the idea of ending years of a relationship terrified her. Still, she knew that if she continued down that path, she would lose something far more valuable than her marriage. She would lose herself. She stared at the dark ceiling and took a deep breath. She knew something had to change, and that change would start with a decision that would alter the course of her life forever. The days continued to drag on in suffocating monotony, and the tension in Olivia's house only grew. The financial situation had become unsustainable. With Olivia out of the workforce and struggling to find a new position, James was the sole provider for the household. However, his salary wasn't enough to maintain the lifestyle they had established together, especially with Chloe's extravagant spending, which did nothing to alleviate the situation. Chloe, always used to luxury and comfort, completely ignored the family's struggles. She continued to ask for money for shopping, outings with friends, and other frivolities, as if nothing had changed. Olivia, watching in silence, felt a mixture of helplessness and frustration. Chloe, with her whims and lack of concern, seemed oblivious to the chaos that had settled in the house. James, on the other hand, was growing more impatient and irritable. The pressure of being the sole provider began to weigh on him, and his dissatisfaction with Olivia only increased. Every time she mentioned searching for a new job, he cut her off with some bitter comment, criticizing her inability to contribute to the household. It was on a hot Friday afternoon that everything finally fell apart. Olivia was sitting in the living room, reviewing job postings once again, when she heard the front door slam loudly. James walked in, his face tense, his shoulders stiff. Chloe followed right behind him, without even glancing at Olivia. There was something in the air, something dark like a storm about to break. "We need to talk," James said, his voice filled with frustration. Olivia looked up from her laptop, already feeling the discomfort growing inside her. "About what?" she asked in a low voice, almost afraid of the answer. James tossed his bag onto the couch and let out a deep sigh, as if he were tired of a burden he had carried for too long. "About how you've become useless to this house," he shot back, without hesitation. Those words cut Olivia like a sharp knife. She blinked, trying to process what he had just said. James had always been harsh in recent months, but he had never been so cruel. "Useless?" she whispered, incredulous. "How can you say that?" "I'm trying, James. I'm doing everything I can." "Trying?" He laughed, but the sound had no humor. It was bitter. "You're not doing anything but hiding behind that computer, pretending to look for work. The reality is, you can't keep this house running. The food is always terrible, the place is a mess, and now I'm the only one supporting this house. Do you know how much that weighs on me?" Olivia felt the tears burning her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She knew that if she showed weakness in that moment, James would destroy her completely. "And Chloe?" Olivia finally asked, looking at her stepdaughter, who was standing by the stairs with her arms crossed, watching the argument with a bored expression. "She doesn't help at all, doesn't contribute to the expenses, doesn't pitch in around the house. Do you think it's fair that all the responsibility falls on me?" Chloe rolled her eyes, sighing impatiently. "Don't start blaming me for your problems," the young woman snapped. "If you knew how to manage things, we wouldn't be in this situation. It's not my fault you lost your job. Maybe if you were more competent, that wouldn't have happened." Olivia felt a knot tighten even more in her throat. James's manipulation over Chloe was evident. She had turned into a smaller version of him, always ready to attack Olivia whenever the opportunity arose. "You've always been spoiled, Chloe, always." Olivia finally exploded, her voice trembling. "I try to be a good stepmother. I try to make this house work, but what do I get in return? Contempt. I'm drowning here, and all you do is stomp on me even more." "Maybe you should leave," James suggested cruelly. "Maybe it would be better for all of us." There was a moment of absolute silence. Olivia's heart seemed to stop beating. The words echoed in the room, a terrible truth she had been trying to avoid but could no longer ignore. And then came the breaking point. The day before, Olivia had gone out to run errands, and as she passed the main street, she saw James speaking intimately with a younger woman near a local cafe. The closeness between them, the exchanged smiles, the subtle touch on her arm, everything indicated more than just friendship. Olivia's heart sank at that moment. She knew, deep down, that James was having an affair, but she had refused to admit it until now. "And the other woman?" Olivia blurted out, her voice filled with pain. "The woman you've been seeing around town? How much longer are you going to pretend this marriage means anything to you?" James hesitated, his jaw clenched. Chloe looked at him, confused, but said nothing. James's silence was all the confirmation Olivia needed. "I don't need this anymore," Olivia murmured, her eyes burning with tears she had held back for too long. "You're cheating on me, humiliating me, destroying me, and I'll let it happen, but not anymore." With a firm and resolute voice, Olivia made the decision that would change her life forever. "I want a divorce, James. Today." Olivia was determined. After years of enduring the weight of humiliation and betrayal, she knew it was time to leave. The next morning after the argument, while James and Chloe were still asleep, she quietly packed her bags. A mix of relief and fear washed over her as she placed her clothes into the suitcase, without looking back. On the kitchen table, she left the divorce papers with a simple note. "I'm leaving. I want a divorce. Good luck." Olivia returned to her hometown, where her mother, a strong and cheerful woman, welcomed her with open arms. As her mother's home embraced her with the familiarity and warmth she hadn't felt in a long time, Olivia took a deep breath. She knew starting over wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in months, she felt like she could rise again. With her mother's support, Olivia began rebuilding her life. Her mother, always full of optimism, encouraged her not to worry about finances immediately. "Focus on yourself, my dear," her mother would say with a gentle smile. "Money we can handle. What matters now is your peace." Without the pressure of maintaining a household or dealing with James and Chloe's disdain, Olivia found space to breathe. She began looking for remote work opportunities. After a few weeks, finally, a Chinese export company hired her as an online consultant. The freedom to work from home, without the pressure of an office, allowed Olivia to regain her confidence and, slowly, the sparkle in her eyes. Olivia felt like she was finally starting to emerge from the darkness that had surrounded her since the betrayal and divorce. Her mother's unconditional support was essential, providing not only a roof over her head, but also the emotional security she hadn't found in years. Without the constant pressure from James and Chloe, Olivia could breathe and, for the first time in a long time, reflect on what she truly wanted for herself. She knew she needed a new direction, a new purpose. Through her online job searches, she found a remote work opportunity that gave her a glimpse of hope. Working for a Chinese export company, Olivia began to feel her confidence slowly returning. At first, they were small tasks, but over time, her dormant talents began to shine again. The skills that James had once devalued now made her stand out among her colleagues. With each successfully completed project, she remembered her ability and competence. The pain from the past was still there, but now it served as fuel to strengthen her. Olivia had rediscovered her worth, far from the criticisms and humiliations. Her dedication was quickly rewarded. In less than a year, Olivia was promoted to a leadership position within the company. The professional recognition she had lost returned to bloom, and her now high salary was a concrete testament to her rise. Each compliment received and each accomplishment at work was more than just financial results. They were emotional healings. For the first time, Olivia was able to look at the future with optimism, knowing that she had overcome not only professional difficulties, but, more importantly, the emotional scars left by those who should have supported her. With time, Olivia's name began to gain recognition in the business world. Her professional achievements didn't go unnoticed, and soon she was invited to interviews and important events. The woman who had once been humiliated and demeaned in her own home was now appearing on television, recognized as a successful executive. Her growth seemed unstoppable, but amid all this rise, the past insisted on resurfacing. James and Chloe, who had disappeared from her life after the divorce, began hearing about her victories. Their lives, however, were in ruins. James, always so sure of himself, was now facing severe financial difficulties. Without Olivia to help with the expenses and with Chloe's irresponsibility, the situation had become unsustainable. The bills piled up, and what had once been a life of comfort began to fall apart. He knew he had lost more than a wife. He had lost the woman who sustained the household, both emotionally and financially. Desperate, James decided to try reconnecting. With a short and vague message, he sought to open a channel of communication with Olivia. He felt she could be the solution to his problems, as she had been so many times in the past. When Olivia read James's message, a chill ran down her spine. For a moment, the old ghost of pain returned to haunt her, bringing back memories of the betrayals and humiliations. Chloe, in turn, also sent a message, apologizing and claiming she had been manipulated by her father. But Olivia was no longer the fragile woman they had abandoned. What James and Chloe didn't realize was that she had transformed, and that Olivia, who accepted crumbs of affection and consideration, no longer existed. Calmly and firmly, Olivia deleted the messages without responding, knowing that she no longer needed them for anything. The freedom she felt in doing so was a reminder of her new life, a life where the past no longer controlled her. The decision to delete the messages without even responding brought a sense of freedom Olivia had never experienced before. For so long, she had been a prisoner to James and Chloe's expectations, always trying to be good enough, always trying to fix what was broken. But now, by leaving those messages behind, she felt that she had finally cut the last tie binding her to that life of pain. The silence that followed her decision was comforting. Olivia knew that she had closed a chapter, and, most importantly, she had done so on her own terms. James and Chloe didn't give up easily. Their attempts to contact her intensified in the following weeks. James, desperate, began sending long emails, begging for a chance to redeem himself, offering empty apologies and reminding her of the good times they had shared. Chloe, more direct, asked for money and help, confessing that her father could no longer support the house and that they were on the verge of losing everything. In the past, those words would have shattered Olivia. She had always been generous, always wanting to help those she loved, even at the expense of her own well-being. But now, as she read those messages, she didn't feel pity. She felt clarity. They were reaching out to her out of self-interest, not love. Olivia had blocked them in every way possible. The woman who had risen from the ashes of betrayal was now strong, unshakable. For the first time, there were no traces of guilt or doubt. Her life was filled with new challenges and achievements, and the space James and Chloe once occupied had been replaced by people who truly respected and admired her. Cutting off her past completely brought not only relief, but also a new realization. Olivia was, finally, the master of her own destiny. What once haunted her now seemed like just a distant echo of a life she would never allow to return. Months passed, and Olivia realized that true freedom wasn't just in cutting ties with James and Chloe, but in reconnecting with herself. The woman she had left behind, the optimistic, dream-filled Olivia who believed in her own strength, was finally back. Her work continued to thrive, but it was more than professional success that filled her now. Olivia could tangibly feel the weight of tranquility. The peace of knowing that she had not only overcome the financial crisis, but also the emotional scars that James and Chloe had left. At a prestigious business event, where she was invited to give a speech, Olivia found something unexpected. Among the crowd of executives, there was a man watching her differently. Not with the exaggerated admiration of someone who only saw her success, but with a look of genuine respect. His name was Ethan, a discreet businessman known for his integrity. They exchanged few words at the event, but it was enough to leave an impression. Ethan wasn't interested in what she represented to the world, but in the woman who had managed to overcome so many adversities. He saw something in Olivia that no one had seen in a long time: her essence, her intrinsic value. The following weeks were filled with sincere conversations and casual meetings. Ethan, unlike James, didn't pressure her, didn't judge her. He was simply present, offering a safe space for Olivia to be who she truly was. With him, Olivia didn't need to prove anything to anyone. For the first time, she was building a relationship where love wasn't based on convenience or dependence, but on mutual respect and deep understanding. Ethan admired her strength, but he also recognized her vulnerabilities, and that made all the difference. Olivia realized that her healing was complete. It wasn't just about rising financially or professionally. It was about rediscovering what it meant to be loved and respected. The emotional healing, which she once thought was impossible, now felt more real every day. The past was still there, but it no longer controlled her. Olivia looked at her new life with gratitude, knowing that her greatest triumph wasn't in material achievements, but in the woman she had become: resilient, authentic, and truly free. Olivia was sitting by the large window of her new house, the morning sun illuminating her face as she gazed at the horizon. The sea before her seemed as vast as the opportunities that now filled her life. She smiled, not out of pride but out of gratitude. Every painful step that had led her there, every fall, betrayal, and disappointment all seemed to finally make sense. She had rebuilt herself in a way she had never imagined possible. Her strength, once stifled by years of humiliation, now flowed freely, guiding every decision with clarity and confidence. Ethan had become a constant and quiet presence by her side, the kind of man who didn't seek to steal her shine, but rather supported her in the light. They had built a solid relationship, based on something Olivia had never had before: mutual respect and an admiration that went beyond appearances or convenience. With him, Olivia learned that she didn't have to carry the world on her shoulders alone. She could allow herself to be cared for without losing the independence she had worked so hard to achieve. But then, on an unexpected morning, a letter arrived. It wasn't digital. It wasn't an email like so many others she had received over the months. It was a letter, handwritten, with the name Chloe signed on the envelope. Olivia hesitated, her hands trembling slightly as she slid her finger along the edge to open it. Something inside her warned that this wasn't just an ordinary apology. The hurried handwriting in the first lines made it clear that Chloe was desperate. She wasn't just sorry. There was something deeper, something darker that Olivia hadn't expected. In the letter, Chloe confessed something that changed Olivia's entire perspective on the past. She revealed that during the marriage, James hadn't only betrayed Olivia with other women, but had also committed financial fraud using Olivia's name without her knowledge. Chloe, young and manipulated, had known about the scheme but had always chosen to stay silent out of fear and convenience. The divorce had saved Olivia from a greater ruin than just emotional. She could have lost everything, including her freedom, if James's crimes had come to light with her name involved. Silent tears rolled down Olivia's face as she read each line, shocked by the extent of the betrayal she had endured. Chloe begged for forgiveness, but the letter was more than that. It was a warning. James was on the verge of collapse, bankrupt, entangled in legal problems, and he was desperately trying to save himself. Chloe feared that in his desperation, he might try to involve Olivia in one final scheme, dragging her back into the chaos she had fought so hard to escape. Olivia felt her heart grow heavy. All the effort to leave that chapter of her life behind suddenly seemed threatened by this new revelation. She knew she had to protect everything she had built: her peace, her love, her career. Olivia's phone buzzed beside her, and for a moment, she hesitated to look. It was Ethan, sending a simple message: "I'm here always. Don't forget that." She smiled through her tears. For a moment, she felt the old Olivia try to resurface, the woman who carried the weight of the world on her shoulders, always willing to fix everything herself. But then, she remembered that Olivia no longer existed. She had overcome that. Now, she was surrounded by people who truly supported her. And Ethan was one of them. She wouldn't have to face this new challenge alone. Determined, Olivia picked up the phone and called her lawyer. James wouldn't come back into her life, not this time. And she would do everything in her power to ensure that the ties to the past no longer bound her. The plot twist wasn't Chloe's letter or James's crimes, but Olivia's inner strength, which now refused to be a victim of circumstance. Her true victory lay there, in her ability to face the past with courage, without bending. She would fight for her freedom, not with revenge, but with the calmness of someone who knows that justice, sooner or later, always prevails. As the call ended, Olivia took a deep breath. The weight of the new revelations mixed with the lightness of knowing that this time, she was prepared. Her future was secure because she had learned to protect herself. Olivia's story didn't end there. It restarted every day, with the certainty that no matter what came her way, she would keep moving forward. Did you enjoy the story? If you were also moved by Olivia's journey and want to hear more stories of overcoming challenges and transformation, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. We will keep sharing more incredible stories with you.